Well, I'd like to welcome you to the next video in the meditation series. Today I'd like to talk to you about how I began to sleep on the floor just like a Buddhist monk. One of my teachers came to me one day. I'd already been eating once a day for quite a while and found this to be very advantageous for meditation and in ending this sense of neediness. I've always had an issue with food in a sense that I really found that it's difficult to give up some things, and having to live under this neediness was difficult because I was having troubles. But anyways, one day he came to me and he said, it's time for you to start sleeping on the floor. And I remember saying, I was thinking, I don't know about this. So I said, well, why would I want to do that? And he says the Buddha taught his monks, those who he taught as monks, to sleep on the floor, sleep on a very thin mat. Something he himself did. You know, there were instances when people would find the Buddha sleeping out in the fields, just sleeping on the grass. And they say, well, come on home. He said he was fine, he was great. He could sleep anywhere because he was not a needy person. So anyways, I thought I'd give it a shot. So I asked how to do it. So he said, just put out a thin mat. He says, get dressed nice and warm. But for the first time, he says, don't use a blanket and pillow. So I went home and tried it out that night. I put a sleeping bag on my floor right out here, right in front of my meditation area, and lie down and turn off the lights. I did sleep very well, to tell you the truth. I was kind of restless, and I found the floor to be quite bony and hard. I was bony, the floor was hard. And I called him up in the morning and I said, you know something? I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I said, I didn't sleep very well. And I said, you know, I really miss my pillow, my blanket. I don't know how anybody can sleep without a pillow and blanket. And he said to me, but I told you to dress warm. Did you dress warm? I said, yeah, I did. I said, I live in Canada. I wear track pants and shirt and a hat. I wear even more socks. And I said, I wasn't cold. I just was really uncomfortable. And he says, but... So he said, if you were warm, why did you miss your blanket? Why did you need your blanket? He says, the reason why is because you were emotionally connected to your blanket. Right? It wasn't there because you were cold. It was there because it provided comfort in another way. And he says, you've always been wrapped in a blanket. You've always had a pillow. Right? And he said, just let those things go for a while. Just see what happens. In the end, I did end up using a blanket and a pillow, but I still sleep on the floor. And I remember after a few weeks of doing it, I had a great night. I mean, absolutely perfect. And I said to him, I said, you know, I slept great. I said, I don't know what happened. It just felt perfect. He says, your mind is beginning to understand that this was all you needed. It's all you needed, right? Right? It was simple. And the mind likes that. You can now survive by eating once a day and sleeping on the floor. That's all it takes for you to survive in this world. And he says, when you woke up that day, you looked around at all the other things in your house, and the mind began to ask the question, what are all these things for then? These things were not there just as a blanket to provide warmth, because we were already warm. They weren't there to provide comforts, because all the comforts that we need to survive are a floor to sleep on and a bowl of food. He says, but these are the things that we chose to surround ourselves with to become happy, because we were in the state of unhappiness, in the state of conflict. And he says, and the mind now realized they could let these things go. So this was one of the lessons that I learned from sleeping on the floor, that our needs are very little. You know, I remember one of my teachers said to me once, if you want to know what you need to survive, think of stepping off of a plane in a strange city with nothing but a wallet. What do you need? A place to sleep and some food. Say you're a castaway, your ship is sinking, and you swim ashore on an island. What do you need? You need food, and a simple shelter and a place to sleep. Right? This is all we ever needed. So I said to them, well, then how did all this happen? Why do we need all these things now in this modern 20th century? I guess it's the 21st century. I'm old. And he said, the mind started out as a food gatherer. Before it was aware, self-aware, it was aware only of outer things. It searched for food, it searched for shelter, it searched for sexual contact. Right? And it only had those three problems. It was hungry, it was tired, and it needed to produce children. But all of a sudden, one day, we became self-aware. And all of a sudden, we had more problems. But these weren't physical problems. These were emotional problems. Problems of fear, anxiety, not sure about, all these types of things. Insecurities. And the mind had only three physical things that it could use to solve problems. The things that it had used for billions of years. Food, shelter or material objects, and sexuality. And so when the mind began to have emotional needs, insecurity, anxiety, to be lost in an emotional way, it began to fill those needs with the only three things that it had: food, sexuality, and materialism. And that is why the mind has sought to solve its problems in this way. So you see, the problem with solving emotional needs with material things is that many material things come with more needs, and it just expands our neediness, right? Say we want to feel successful because emotionally we feel that we have a need for that, and so we go buy a cottage. Now we have needs. The emotional needs were not fulfilled. Temporarily they were, but then all of a sudden we are needy in another way. We need to protect this thing. We need to insure it. We need to clean it. And it goes on and on and on until our life is a collection of emotional needs that we need to fulfill all day long. And this is how we're dragged all day long by our emotional neediness, right? So there's an advantage to getting rid of our emotional neediness. First of all, there certainly is an advantage of getting rid of solving emotional neediness with material things. Emotional neediness, the feeling of insecurity, all these feelings, these things are solved not with material things, but by sitting quietly on a meditation mat and listening to them. And then one by one, untying these little emotional knots until we only need the things we only need: food, simple shelter. And once we reach the point of being completely silent of all these emotional needs, and once we have the situation where we can easily find food, easily find shelter, the mind will be clear, the mind will be quiet, the body will be at peace. So anyways, thanks again for coming to this meditation meeting. I want to thank you very much. We do appreciate it. We ask that you subscribe if you find this beneficial, and we'll see you next day. Thanks again,